And away we go. It's just me at the moment. Not sure if Eric or Risk are going to join. If not, well, just like I always say, the show must go on. Alright then, I've heard something quite recently that is having quite the shake-up recently, and everyone is like, why would you do that? I don't understand. So we're just gonna get that out of the way and just go on about whatever is going on in the world. Israel approved for 2026 Eurovision. At the EBU General Assembly on December 4th and December 5th, members will vote in Geneva on whether Israel can participate in Eurovision 2025 after a postponed November meeting. I think that's supposed to say Eurovision 2026. Last month, the EBU announced voting rule changes on November 21st after member broadcasters threatened boycott over the war in Gaza and alleged vote interference. Broadcasters from Spain, Ireland, Slovenia, and the Netherlands have signalled possible withdrawals, while Iceland's RUV will formally request Israel's exclusion amid accusations of paid-for advertising, which Israel denies. If the EBU fails to reach consensus, broadcasters may decide individually or as a breakaway group with members due to confirm participation by mid-December and a final list by Christmas, amid warnings of the biggest Eurovision boycott. Under the new rules, the standard professional jury at semi-finals hold around 50% of the vote. Audience votes are capped at 10, and the contest draws more than 150 million viewers, and ORF urging compromise in Vienna. So, when I've heard this story, of course, they were talking about changes to the voting and the rules of the contest. Even if there is a difference with these rules put in place, it's not enough. And there are going to be Eurovision fans that will say that whatever these changes are put in place for this year in 2026, it's not going to fix all the problems that people have been arguing since October 7th happened. And it's not going to fix everything for sure. And besides, Israel has a massive diaspora. Not just, well, actually, yes. In terms of religion, there is a big diaspora. But even at ethnicity, there is going to be a diaspora across other European countries. And that remains the same. Israel is going to get loads of points from the televotes going forward in the next few years. Even with these changes put in place, you will see that there is a divide on which countries get through, get far, and what results they get from both the public and the juries. The General Assembly concludes until eventually what's to be discussed in the General Assembly has been discussed, and if Israel does not come in the picture or has been discussed on the 5th, like unlike on the 4th when it was not discussed on, then we know for sure that Israel is not going to be excluded from Eurovision. And the countries that are threatening to withdraw, they're going to withdraw. And like with what's seen with Spain, Netherlands, Slovenia, and Ireland, they might as well. They did it. They did just that, and they will stand by that, regardless of what is going to put in place to ensure that everyone is happy, if they are happy. Otherwise, yeah, if only times were simpler. Well, times have always been simple. It's just we just make things more complicated than they already are. Something I've been struggling with, but that's besides the point. So, as it stands now, Israel is going to continue competing at Eurovision 2026, and they will continue to compete at Eurovision for many years to come. So, yeah. Now, people are saying that this is the end for Eurovision. Eurovision is still going to continue, mainly for the sake of giving a career for artists that do represent their countries, as well as a reason to get people excited and take their mind off whatever goes on in the world. I like to call Eurovision the world's biggest distraction, and I don't mean it in a bad way. This competition really takes your mind off whatever goes on in the world, even if there are elements in Eurovision that are political. But that's another discussion for another time. Now, whilst people are saying that the the vote the discussions have already are set in stone, if there is going to be a vote on Israel participation, I think that would happen the following day as of this recording. And until then, I'm just gonna wait until see what happens. Seems like that only 4 countries' participations have been withdrawn, which is giving an indication, but this General Assembly is still ongoing, so I'm just gonna wait to see what happens. So yeah, there we go. La-di-da. A safety volunteer who shot and killed Arthur Folasa Liu, a protester at a No Kings demonstration in Salt Lake City, has been charged with manslaughter. Arturo Roberto Gamboa, who was carrying a rifle at the protest, will not be charged as Utah permits open carry of firearms. Matthew Alder, the safety volunteer, stated he thought Gamboa was about to commit a mass shooting when he fired at him. I've heard discussions from Americans about the Second Amendment, the right to bear arms. In other words, allowing Americans to hold firearms for the sake of their own defense. Whilst I'm all for people to have something to defend themselves, not just firearms, but some kind of defense in case they are to be threatened or something, I do have concerns about the casualties that comes from that, and the people that possess such firearm and then open fire on school children at schools or on anyone at any public gathering is not doing the Second Amendment any favors. Will this change the Second Amendment in the United States? No. No, it won't. However, that's not to say that particular US states aren't going to put in measures that prohibit people to possess firearms. The US is like that. There's laws, not just at a federal level, but at an individual state level. So laws in one state can differ significantly from another state in the US. Again, I'm all for defending yourselves, whatever necessary means to be. Look, sometimes sometimes in life there are sacrifices that has to be made, and this is one of them. And no matter what discussions or debates that tries to convince people otherwise, there isn't much change going to happen from that. Things will remain the same until something out of the blue really changes people's mindsets about how we handle firearms and defending ourselves, because we feel threatened by particular groups of people and or particular circumstances that come our way. That strained Kenya to sell Safaricom stake to Vodacom in $1.6 billion deal. On Thursday, Vodacom Group Limited agreed to acquire a 55% stake in Safaricom plc, with 15% from the Government of Kenya and 5% from Vodafone Group plc. Kenya, with the government first signalling in May 2025, is selling more Safaricom plc shares to fill its coffers amid fiscal pressure, supported by Safaricom's 9.3% service and 14% M-Pesa revenue growth. The buyer will pay 34 shillings per share, a premium over the previous close. with Vodacom paying €1.36 billion for 15% and €0.45 billion for 5%, expected to close in early 2026. The transaction will be consolidated by both Vodacom Group Limited and Vodafone Group plc. Completion is subject to regulatory approvals in Kenya, South Africa, and Ethiopia, and Safaricom plc said Vodafone Kenya does not intend to launch a takeover offer. The acquisition positions Vodacom as a potential leader, providing Vodafone and Vodacom an opportunity to control one of Africa's leading telecoms and financial services firms, with M-Pesa processing over 100 million daily transactions from 38 million customers. Now, this is big. At least by African standards, it's very, very big. But I wouldn't hold your breath out just yet. It's only the beginning. And even if the deal does pull through, well, not many people are going to give a damn. Not just for the sake of circumstances that is not of anyone's concern. What influence does Vodafone or Vodacom have around the world? And what difference will this deal make? Not just in Kenya, but for the entire African continent. Africa, the African economy as a whole, is on the rise and will grow significantly given how many children are being brought into this world, much more so than anywhere else in the world. However, this is not to take away the fact that this deal is significant. It's a big deal. There is going to be a massive difference to all the people in Kenya who uses their service for whatever reason they are using their service for. This is only the beginning, but certainly not the end. Toyota deepens connections in F1 by sponsoring Haas team in 2026. Toyota is increasing its presence in Formula One by taking over the title sponsorship of the Haas team in 2026, with the team's new name being TGR Haas F1 Team. Toyota signed a technical partnership with Haas a year ago for research, engineering, and driver development, and the Haas car has carried some Toyota branding since then. Akio Toyoda, chairman of Toyota Motor Corporation, said he had regrets about pulling Toyota out of Formula One earlier and wants to give young drivers a better chance to compete. Toyota doing Toyota things. Well played. Formula One is making a rise, not just with the docu-series or biopic. I'm not sure what you call it, but I know there is a movie revolving around Formula One that is really helping with Formula One's publicity and marketing. But even before then, Formula One is making a steady growth and continues to do so for the next few years. And any automaker and or manufacturer that gets themselves into Formula One or gets involved in Formula One in any aspect will certainly and likely be better off. Not just in name of not just for the sake of recognition and publicity, but also to prove themselves that the technology and the mechanical work they provide really pulls up above their own weight. Let's see how Toyota does with this partnership with the Haas team. I think he'll do well, but it won't be enough to contend for the manufacturer championship or the drivers championship. An international rights group accused the Rapid Support Forces (RSF) paramilitary group of committing war crimes during an attack on a refugee camp in Darfur, Sudan. The attack on the Zamzam camp in April killed at least 47 civilians who were fleeing violence or seeking refuge, according to Amnesty International. The RSF attack was described as a sustained campaign targeting camps for displaced people, involving killings, rapes, looting, and destruction of buildings. Size. I can't say I'm surprised, nor shocked. I'm just disappointed. How is this still going? And I think a lot of people are also sick and tired of the violence as well. However, it's still going to continue, no matter what. It's unfortunate. However, that is life. And life goes on the way life continues to go. I just hope that everyone in Sudan are safe and they have strong faith that someday peace will return to the nation, and that no more lives will be lost from this tragic war. It's very unfortunate. There's no other words to describe it. Air Force pilots safely eject before F-16 fighter jets crashes in California desert. On Wednesday, an F-16C Fighting Falcon aircraft from the Air Force Thunderbirds demonstration squadron crashed during a training mission over controlled airspace in California, but the pilot ejected safely. The pilot suffered non-life-threatening injuries and is in stable condition, receiving care according to authorities. The crash, which caused a fire that was contained, is under investigation by the U.S. Air Force. The F-16C Fighting Falcon crashed around 8 a.m. during a training mission over controlled airspace in California, according to a statement from Nellis Air Force Base in Nevada. The fire department said it had responded to an aircraft emergency near Trona, an unincorporated community in the Mojave Desert, about 180 miles (290 kilometers) north of Los Angeles. In 2022, a Navy FA-18 Super Hornet crashed near Trona, killing the pilot. Wednesday's crash is under investigation, and further information will be released from the 57th Wing Public Affairs Office, the Air Force statement said. Like the Navy's Blue Angels, the Air Force Thunderbirds perform their famous tight formations at air shows and train to fly within inches of each other. The brief statement from the Air Force did not give details on the circumstances of the crash. No matter how good of a pilot you are, you must always be on high alert and pay attention to all of your surroundings. Not to say that the worst is yet to happen, or the worst could happen to you as a pilot. However, you just don't know what's going to come at you whilst you're flying. So it is important that you stay on high alert all of the time. At bare minimum most of the time. So, of course, gladly the pilot flying that jet is safe and certainly not injured, thankfully. I think there's a lot more to this than what I just read, but we can't be too sure about that information until we wait to see what comes out of that investigation. Going forward, just be on high alert and always assess potential errors and faults in such aircraft. There's a reason why you often hear about casualties with aircraft, with people, at least with vehicles that fly in the air. Not saying it's non-existent. However, there are far fewer airplane or flight vehicle injuries and casualties than there are casualties caused by vehicles on the ground. There is a difference in the standards of safety in such vehicles. Travis Kelce says he and fiancée Taylor Swift have never done what? Okay. On December 3rd, Travis Kelce said on the New Heights podcast he and Taylor Swift had not had an argument during their 2.5 years together. Oh, good for them. The episode featured George Clooney as a guest, who had claimed he and Amal Clooney hadn't argued in about 10 years, and Travis Kelce pressed him if he was lying, which Clooney denied. Clooney explained his approach, saying, "Neither of us are gonna win the argument, so why get in?" And Travis Kelce joked he was taking notes on the advice. They announced their engagement in August after dating since 2023, and Page Six reported they initially planned an intimate Rhode Island wedding, but may add a second larger ceremony. Their romance began in July 2023 during Swift's Era Tour stop at Arrowhead Stadium, and the Chiefs host the Texans on Sunday, December 7th, as they aim to improve their 6-6 record. Well, firstly, good for Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift on the relationship so far, and what I just heard now that they haven't argued since they started dating, which is quite impressive, especially given that today's relationship standards, where at least 80% of the time you're going to get an argument with your significant other. But hey, if there are relationships where people don't, where the couples don't argue all that often, good for them. That is great. That's what it always should be about. No matter what differences people have, life is too short to argue about the small stuff. Something happens in life, and you just gotta pull through, you know? Otherwise, yeah, that's all I have to say. Good on their relationship, and even more impressive, they haven't argued since they got together. If only most, if only a lot of relationships in the world today are like that. Oh well, that's life. We gotta build character somehow. EU agrees deal on genetically edited crops, sparking renewed debate. On Wednesday, negotiators from the European Union agreed a new framework for new genomic 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 techniques in plant breeding that exempts many NGT plants from strict GM rules, with the European Council saying it could help farmers compete globally. Have been a central dispute, with the European Parliament originally calling for a patent ban to protect farmers' rights, while proponents of new genomic techniques argued loosening rules boosts food security and reduces dependency on non-EU suppliers. Technically, NGTs differ because they do not require inserting foreign DNA, and the deal preserves farmers' rights to save seeds while easing labeling for supermarkets. The agreement now awaits formal endorsement by the European Parliament and member states in a second reading step, with agriculture unions supporting it, while consumers and critics raise choice and safety concerns. If enacted, the change could increase adoption of gene-edited crops across the EU, strengthening food security and reducing resilience on non-EU suppliers, while eased labeling and patents reshape the market for breeders, retailers, and consumers. Now, whatever comes out of that story, one thing for sure, I'm backing the farmers on this because farmers are important in our society today, as they were important thousands of years ago. A lot of them, they grow the food that we eat. They produce the resources that goes into the clothes that we wear. I'm trying to think of what else farmers contribute towards. But one thing for sure, certain certain things for sure is that they grow a lot of the food that we eat and produce a lot of the resources that we use for whatever that these resources are used in our lives. And just seeing the loosening of rules, I mean, yeah, I don't see why we have to have tight rules or regulations on farming to begin with. On the other hand, there has to be a limit about what people should do with crops. And actually, wow. I'm so used to saying that the EU have so many rules and regulations and you know what? That is still true. The EU has lots of regulations and standards. Whilst there are and standards and regulations the EU puts in that provides for the health and safety of Europeans, there are also times that these rules and regulations they hinder innovation and prevent particular businesses from striving in their particular sector. And I'm not saying that these standards that they are putting for protecting farmers' rights is likely going to be the case, but it's worth noting that it is important that we should allow workers in every sector, in every industry, to utilize whatever resources that they have at their disposal to produce good business for other consumers across the continent. I will say that. Whilst it's not particularly a win for the EU, it's not much of an L either. As in, it's not as bad of a regulation or standard that the EU has put in as I thought. Trying to balance my opinions on the EU to the best of my ability. Whilst there have been good things coming out of the EU, especially with very small economical nations like Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Malta, Cyprus, and so on, there are times that, in my opinion, is a bit much. In my opinion, I don't think there are regulations or standards that are necessary, especially if they're going to hinder and limit business innovation. But that's just. But hey, I'm all for allowing farmers to continue with their work and contributing to local economies wherever they are around Europe or anywhere around the world. It's important, no matter what. On Wednesday, Education Minister Paul Calandra authorized releasing withheld EQAO scores and launched a province-wide review led by a two-member advisory body. In the 2024-25 school year, the tests show 64% of grade 3, 51% of grade 6, and 58% of grade 9 Ontario students met the math standard, while half of grade 6 and 42% of grade 9 students did not. Opposition figures blasted the delay, with John Fraser and Marit Stiles saying families lost 2 months without timely help and calling the panel a delayed tactic. Calandra said the review will examine alignment and data use, tying poor results to dysfunctional trustee performance and placing the near North District School Board under supervision on Monday. The union responded by renewing calls to end EQAO and reallocating funds, while Calandra said the two-member advisory panel will be paid 1,500 Canadian dollars per day and named in 2026. Now, I'm not saying this is true, I'm just saying this is a possibility. And even though it states this is from the 2024-25 school year, I have a feeling, like it has affected many people around the world, the delays in getting the COVID vaccines in order and the COVID quarantine lockdowns that happened for the 2 or so years since 2020 may possibly play a role in why particular students of certain grades in Canadian schools have gotten the results that they have gotten. But that's just one minor factor. that could snowball into today's test scores in any education system around the world. But of course, in regards to this year, you gotta ask yourself, if it's not COVID, which is not that big of a deal as it plays today as it was many years ago, how is it that Canadian school children have gotten such poor results in such tests? Because for years I've heard so much of how great Canada's education system is. To see stories like this, it's absolutely shocking. It's like, I can't believe this. If I was to tell my family this, especially my dad, because he knows a lot of things about a lot of things in the world, he too will be shocked. Like, how could Canada fall so badly in terms of their educational standard? It's shocking to me and to a lot of people if they know anything about education. Whatever the case might be, it's still embarrassing. Not to say that Canada has the best education system in the world. However, its educational standard is at a European standard. It's on par with lots of European countries whose education are also just as good. But of course, then again, there are certain data charts showing that also the education standards across European countries are also on somewhat of a decline. Again, got to ask the question, how is that the case? Why is education standards dropping so significantly? There are other factors that come into play. There could be more than two truths at play at the same time into why this is particularly the case. Anyway, to top it all off, to end on this story, I hope I hope something is done about Canada's education system, not just fixing the issues that are out there or that is painfully obvious that has to be addressed to ensure that, if addressed, the standards are back up again, but to also ensure that issues like this do not happen again. And the same can be said with a lot of countries whose education standards are the best in the world. There has to be ways to fix these problems. The problem isn't just going to go away on its own. UK Sport launches AI app to try and protect athletes from social media abuse. Okay, I kind of like this actually. This is not to say that I'm not giving AI in general any credit, but yeah, I'm all for protecting people from any kind of abuse. On Thursday, UK Sport offered Britain's elite athletes free access to Social Protect, an AI app that detects and removes abusive social media comments in real time through the LA 2028 Olympics. UK Sports Director Kate Baker warned the level of online abuse is unacceptable, while three-time British badminton Olympian Kirsty Gilmore said abuse has increased over the last 6 years. Social Protect, the app, uses AI to scan posts on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and TikTok, detecting over 2 million abusive phrases and auto-hiding replies under a contract worth over 300,000. Didn't say what currency, but I would have guessed pounds. The app lets athletes remain visible on social media while protecting well-being. UK Sports said, and Rugby Australia already uses Social Protect to shield players, coaches, staff, and clubs. Despite the rollout, the contract excludes X, formerly Twitter, and cannot access athletes' inboxes, while Shane Breton said coaches, staff, and athletes' family members will also use the service, an app that protects athletes from social media abuse. That I fully support all the way, and I think the same set of service should also be essentially provided for other celebrities and influencers, even if people find influencers annoying in their attempt to chase clout or, well, whatever opinions they have, they too deserve to live life without any severe consequences. Otherwise, yeah, an app that protects people from social media abuse, not just athletes, sounds like a brilliant idea, and I'd support it all the way. And again, although there are some aspects that notable figures do deserve to pay the prices for their actions and suffer and actually go through the consequences for their actions, there does come a point, no matter how famous you are, that it just goes too far in terms of what kind of comments are geared towards such notable people and the effect it does to those celebrities and athletes. And that has to be addressed, not just swiftly, but effectively as possible. Again, although AI is involved in this, so long it provides better service and efficient convenience to those athletes and to some extent celebrities, if it allows, fair enough, I support it. But of course, just because this is an AI app does not mean that it gives any more credit to AI as it does. We should always be concerned about the reliance on AI for anything and everything. However, so long as it is put to good use and have good, then yes, fair enough. I would allow it. British Columbia Conservative Party leader John Rustad announces resignation. John Rustad has resigned as leader of the British Columbia Conservative Party after a period of internal turmoil, as confirmed in a statement on Thursday morning. Trevor Halford has been appointed as interim leader of the British Columbia Conservative Party following Rustad's resignation. Party president Aisha Este stated that the party is preparing to launch a leadership race to strengthen its opposition role. Rustad emphasized the importance of a strong opposition and clarified that his resignation was not due to a hostile takeover by the British Columbia Liberals. While not particularly informed on what happened that made John Rustad to resign, however, for him to resign in the way he had from what I just read, there has to be a very good reason, and a very strong one at that. Don't have much else to say, other than for the British Columbia Tory Party, whoever is the new leader, surely they can do as effective of a job as John ever did, or if not more, in hopes that someday the British Columbia Tories can take over British Columbia across Canada. Who knows? Anything is possible. We just gotta wait and see if any more comes out of it. And that is it for the episode.